Yeah. Thank you very much and for the opportunity, and thank you very much for everybody that are not joining us here. But today, I would like to speak in Indonesian because all of my presentation are in English. So here, I will talk in Indonesia, and then in 15 minutes, maybe, I will try to deliver my presentation that the title is Indonesia Implementation for Paris Agreement and Expectation for the JCM. Jadi Bapak dan Ibu, selamat siang.
So, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and may peace be upon us all. Konnichiwa. I'm happy to be here with you all today. I'm Dicky from the JCM Secretariat. So, Indonesia, as of current, has delivered NDCs, or nationally determined contributions, that currently have. This is the second version. So we have delivered this NDCs about a month ago, and this is actually a revision of what we have done, and it has been conveyed in 2016. In this NDC, as we know, Indonesia's target is quite ambitious or quite high, but it remains the same. But there are some things that have been revised, particularly in the details of the target. Now, our targets in 2030, we have to reduce emissions by 29% in our own accord, and 41% if we were to use assistance from the international world. So CM1 here refers to unconditional mitigation scenario, while CM2, which is 41%, refers to conditional mitigation scenario. Wherein our target is quite big. The total target of our emission reduction is in the scale of billion tons. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we talk about the structure of Indonesia's NDC, at this time, it has been mentioned in the last NDC, in the second version of NDC that was mentioned, there are 7 key components that we have in our NDCs, 1, 2, 3 till 7, as shown on the screen, which is means of implementation and how it is registered in the national registry. And there are information to facilitate CTUs, and then there's national mitigation. National context. What is it like? The policies, and then there's the mitigation measures. What will be taken, and then adaptation. So this document can be downloaded in the UNFCCC website, and these are all data that Indonesia have conveyed, and it is open to public. And I've also taken this from the presentation given from my colleagues from the Environmental Ministry of Environment and Forestry, that in order to implement the Paris Agreement, Indonesia has actually prepared various setups. So these are some of the instruments in order to achieve those goals. Starting from the NDC itself, we already have a roadmap and strategy and what the mitigations are like. And we also have a roadmap and strategy for adaptation. And we have also made or created Sign Smart, which refers to the inventory of emissions in Indonesia, so the total amount of emissions in Indonesia. And we also have a national registry system, which in this case is managed by the Ministry of Environment and Ministry. So this is the national registry for our NDCs. And we have also created a vulnerability index called SIDIC. And there are various initiatives such as the Climate Kampung program that has been implemented by our colleagues in the line ministries, in the relevant ministries. And there are also safeguards in place for RED Plus for the information system. And there are also other aspects. So these are the instruments that we have set up, and we expect that these can assist in reducing emissions with transparency, accountability, and permanently. So this needs all of our assistance, and these are the instruments. We have the tools. It's just how we are to implement those tools and utilize those tools, and we have to undertake the efforts sustainably or continuously. Okay, now how do we finance climate change mitigation in Indonesia? To date, the way that we finance mitigation efforts for reducing emissions in Indonesia, actually there are several key measures. First one is carbon pricing, or we call it is the carbon economic price. And there's also government financing and private financing or investment, and there's also foreign direct investment or foreign investment. So this is not an absolute aspect. So we could mix them up, we could combine them, and they can be integrated in terms of financing. And what's interesting here is that the carbon economic price is that there are a lot of parties who are now becoming more interested in doing carbon swap. And this includes the activities under GCM, which can be included in the carbon pricing activities. Because if we talk about carbon pricing, then we will always talk about the carbon market and non-market. And there's one that is based on the market and that is not based on the market. The one based on the market, an example is the CPM, PCF, while the non-market here there are other examples as well. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what is going on with the carbon pricing mechanism in Indonesia? Now, if we look at it, currently CDM, the Clean Development Mechanism, is one of the mechanisms that has been made by the UN based on the Kyoto Protocol, and then has been implemented since 2008. And then in 2012, CDM has become oversupply. And the crediting system that is in place, aside from CDM, what we have now is PCS, GCM, Plan FIFO, and CCB that are beginning to be developed. And we also have something that is still under discussion, even to this day, in the Kompas newspaper, which is Emission Trading Scheme, or ETS, where this refers to voluntary TS, which is done in coal-fired power plants. The one that will be supplementing this is ICER, or Indonesia Certified Emission Reduction, that will be launched by our friends from the ministry. Now, ETS is developed by our colleagues from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, while ICER is from the Ministry of Forestry and Environment. As for renewable energy certificate, this has also been developed by our colleagues in the PLN Power Company, Indonesia Power Company, while Corsia, this should have been implemented this year, but due to the pandemic, it's still not running as of yet. And this refers to carbon trade among countries, but particularly for international flights, and it is currently done by ICAO. And there's result-based payment with Norway. It's running well, and we also have carbon tax. And if we read in the media, it is planned to be implemented soon, perhaps next year or the following. But what is clear is that all will require a presidential decree in terms of carbon pricing, and this is still an ongoing process. In Indonesia, if we talk about carbon credit or crediting, then the bulk of it, the crediting that has been certified, is actually from the carbon market, that is the voluntary carbon market, which is business to business. So if we will talk about VCS, so there's about 67 tons that has been certified, and then there's CDM that is currently 34 million tons that have been issued and have been certified, and with there's gold standard, there's 22 projects, and currently it is about 880,000 tons, and there's Plan Vivo. Although it's only 4 projects, it has reached 93,000 tons. Meanwhile, GCM, currently we have about 43 projects that have been confirmed, but those that have been issued are only 12. And out of the 12, and from the 12, the emissions that have been certified is 56,000 tons. Now, as we can see here, in Indonesia, there are five types of crediting schemes that is currently running, and GCM is not the only one. It is actually in the least amount in terms of number of issued carbon credit. Okay, this will be explained about my colleague Mr. Chayadi now. And when we talk about GCM, there are a lot of projects that are running in Indonesia, and currently we have announced various technologies. But clearly, out of all of the technologies that are being implemented, it has been proven as technologies that are able to reduce emissions and able to accurately and permanently create better environment and provide financial impact and environmental impact that is preferable or good. Now, what are the lessons learned from GCM? GCM has run from 2013, and it has been 8 years in the running. Even before Paris Agreement, GCM has been allocated, and it will be encouraged to go into the scheme under the Paris Agreement. First of all, GCM is the first carbon pricing scheme that is based on Indonesia's unique situation. So GCM is actually based on the situations and conditions of Indonesia. And this has been developed jointly, bilaterally with Indonesia and Japan. So it's not only Japan that is developing this, it's developed by Indonesians and Japanese that have the same vision to develop the carbon pricing scheme that has been documented in 44 projects. And GCM also introduces transparency, and it has a robust MRV system, and it's actually more detailed than CDM. And there's a fast process. It has good accountability and permanent emission reduction. And Indonesia is the first country through GCM that carried out or that introduced how sustainable development can actually be evaluated. And this is attached in all of the GCM projects in Indonesia. And there are a lot of GCM projects that utilize technologies that are most sophisticated and more sophisticated than technologies available in developed countries. So the implementation of the GCM projects are there are a lot of GCM projects that use first-time technologies in Indonesia, and these technologies are ready to be replicated and installed in other projects as well. And currently, the GCM scheme has been promoted and introduced in the Paris Agreement, particularly in Article 6.2. and this will be under the Paris Agreement. This means that JCM will be able to contribute in reaching Indonesia's NDCs through reducing the emissions. And lastly, the GCM that we have jointly developed since 8 years ago, this has introduced a lot of new concepts in Indonesia, for examples, there are various new environmental standards that we have promoted to be developed in Indonesia, and it has been made into an SNI, or Indonesian National Standards, and then it's also used by our other colleagues for other schemes, such as carbon taxing and so forth, which are ISO 14064, ISO 14065, and about 2 years ago, we also introduced ISO 14080. Now, for 64 and 65, that's for carbon management and companies, while 14080 is particularly for how to develop methodology. And we also have an evaluation system that is done under GCM, and this is actually replicated by some other countries outside of GCM. So some countries such as Australia and New Zealand and even EU countries, they have actually tried to replicate in developing the GCM scheme. And there are also methodologies under GCM that are used by our colleagues outside of the GCM scheme, and we are very proud of the achievement. That means that what we are doing in GCM, it does not only benefit GCM but also into a broader community. And lastly, the financing model, the financing concept of GCM has also succeeded in being developed by our colleagues outside of GCM. Okay, so how will the future look like? Now, in the future, we will talk about market development. We'll talk about development of carbon price economy, and we hope that it can contribute in achieving the NDC target. And in this case, the market or the carbon economic value can be integrated, and this will be implemented starting from the scheme itself, from the carbon tax, cap and trade, to achieve our NDC. And in the future, GCM and various other schemes will have to be mainstreamed, in Indonesia's national development plan. So the position is clear, the position is clear. And in addition, this will be utilized to support Indonesia's net zero emission target, which is planned to be achieved by 2060. So with this, GCM is hoped to provide to have a greater role under the Paris Agreement. So ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, thank you very much for joining us. And we will have our discussions later through the chat or through the meeting that will be held after this about what we present today. So there will be my colleague, Mr. Chahyadi, who will be presenting, and also our other colleagues here will be presenting. And we hope that you could also have a lot of takeaways from this for your respective work. Okay, that is all from me. Thank you very much, and may peace be upon us all. Konnichiwa.